Good morning. It's the 19th of March 2025, and it's a real good day here, and I'll be soon out and about. I've already checked the cattle, and I'll be out again. This is McGregor for USA Plus Plus. Now, there's a lot of controversy about this, and I have to deal with it. And the reference books I would use for legal matters long ago was the Garda Síochána Guide. The Garda Síochána Guide, I had it here. Like that, people often borrow it from me. I'll get it again. Outline of the Law of Evidence, Cross and Wilkins. That's a very good book. Police powers in England and Wales, and that was on the curriculum for the sergeants and inspectors promotion exam in the Gardaí years ago. I don't know whether it is or not. I knew it inside out, and I knew the Garda Guide inside out, but I never studied the fishery laws. There's 1/3 of the Garda Guide, the fishery laws. Would you believe that? And it's all this river and that river. Now, what I'm giving you here is the best I can deal with this controversial subject. I'm not your lawyer, and I can't take accountability for how it's dealt with in a court, and I can't take accountability for the fact that there have been some upgrades in the meantime, and there's a law reform commission which I would have liked to have made submissions to, but because of my environmental campaigning, all my consultations and my submissions go to the EU on environmental law, so I can't be everywhere. McGregor for the USA. Now, the first thing is there's a rule called Res Gestae, and it means part of the transaction, part of the deal, or at the same time as it happened. Res Gestae. It's either pronounced Res Gestae or Res Gestae. I always call it Res Gestae. It's a very old concept in our law. And it means that generally, you cannot give hearsay evidence. The only evidence can be given in a court is the original evidence by the person who was there, who takes the oath that he'll tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and is examined. A witness that doesn't take the oath and that can't be examined is liable to be an outrageous liar. And generally speaking, their evidence is not admissible in a court. Understand that? Now, just to understand this, the rule against hearsay. One exception is dying declarations. They're kind of dying out too, forgive the pun. And also statements or entries made in books by officials of the state, like the Register of Births. That is evidence that is genuine because of how remote it would be for them to tell lies. If there's a suggestion they're telling lies, they have to be called. Do you understand? So these are public records. Now, Res Gestae is done at the same time. So supposing there's a woman dating a man and they go out for a drink, and there's someone he doesn't like there, and he goes to leave the pub, and her man goes out after him, and she follows him out knowing there's a racket, and a fight breaks out, and her man takes out a knife from his pocket and stabs him. Now, if she says there, "Oh, Paddy, I never knew you had a knife with you," she might withdraw that statement. She might refuse to make a statement convicting him or condemning him because she probably loves him. But she can't withdraw the fact that she said, "Oh, Paddy, I didn't know you had a knife with you." Do you understand that? And this is evidence against hearsay because it's so remote that a person, after seeing someone stabbed, would make a statement like that as to be admissible. Now, the judge would have to warn the jury and would have to have certain precautions about using that type of hearsay evidence. Now, there are several examples of it, but just please understand it again. Excuse me, I was handling hay this morning. I have a bit of a runny nose. Please understand it again. Res Gestae. One of the rules against hearsay that allows hearsay to be told is admissible evidence where the circumstances and the excitement and the fright of what happened is such that the witness would be unlikely to tell a lie. I mean, if he didn't produce a knife, why would she shout, "Oh, Paddy, I never knew you had a knife. I mean, she wouldn't do that if he only hit him with his fist. Do you understand that? That's a rule against hearsay. Now, it's not the fact that she didn't say it would not necessarily get Paddy off the hook for killing your man, but the fact that she did say it would be more evidence against him, if you get my point. And if she withdrew it and said, oh, I never said that, if there was evidence there, if she admitted to the guard that came on the scene, did you say, oh, Paddy, I never knew you had a knife? Oh, and I did. Well, then she was caught. You know, she wouldn't have to go into court even though she withdrew her evidence. So it depends on the circumstances, but due caution has to be used in that case. You understand? Now, that's in the Garda Guide, and it's also in Outline of the Law of Evidence by Cross and Wilkins. And I have a problem now, and I'm not normally called upon to talk about law, but I think that book was given to some student. I hope I get it back. Anyway, that's the story. Now, the thing is, understand that rule against hearsay. Now, the thing is that in criminal law, the crime is against the state, the people. In fact, in serious crimes, it's often written down that the accused, John Henry McCracken, the injured party, the Irish people. That'll do. The people. And they used to be the people at the suit of so-and-so. It's the state that's hurt. That's why you can convict for murder, because your man is dead. He can't be a victim anymore. He doesn't know what's happening, but it's the state that's hurt when murder is committed. And it's the state that's hurt when rape is committed. Because the state says you shall not commit the offence of rape. And it's against the state, even though it's the lady or the injured party that's hurt most. In the thinking of the law, we're all hurt. Now, as I told you, I was a guard for a long time. And it often fell to me to investigate sexual crimes. It's just part of my work. I like to get the truth. I was totally objective about it. You know, sometimes victims might feel I was a bit official, but they began to realise that really wasn't the case. And very often when there'd be a lady in, she'd report a rape, I'd put her at ease, and there'd be a band guard, usually a female guard there as well. Some of them later became great investigators themselves, and years later, having learned at a good stable, I can tell you. But often I'd say, hold on, will you take a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? And she might say, well, I'd like a wee cup of coffee. And I'd personally go out and make the coffee. I wouldn't get the station orderly to do it. I'd go out, get the few cups, the bit of sugar, and the tray, and I'd bring it in. And the idea it was to be kind also, but it was to put the person at ease and to feel out what they were like. Were they decent? What was the real story? Now, I could talk all day about various cases. I told you about a case of a young person in a station I was in, and they were being put up to complain about somebody just for badness or money or whatever. And I spotted that the mother was interfering with the witness. That's over and done with. There was nothing done there. They didn't like me for it, but I had to be truthful. I couldn't have this person put down in the wrong. Now, another one that I remember happening, there was a Christmas party for a company, and this guy was a worker. He was doing something like welding or something for them, and this girl was at the party. She was doing a bit of office work, and she was a lovely, good, decent girl. And there was a few drinks, and there was a bed, and there was a bit of hooky, but she claimed she did not want to have intercourse with him or anyone else that night. She did not go out that night to let that happen. And number one, we proved there was sex. But the next thing was it consensual? And I come to the conclusion that it was not consensual. He forced himself on her in a way that she didn't want. And although she may have maybe done a bit of cuddling and all that with him and all that, there was drink on the job. And she was a decent girl. He wasn't too bad a fella either, but still, he was eating beef, as to say. The testosterone levels was high. And she was kind of half crying about what happened. And I knew that there was a case. Now, he could have went down for 10 years. Anyway, I investigated it, and I was getting the file ready when she came in, and she withdrew the whole lot. And she didn't withdraw to let him off. She withdrew it because she couldn't face the whole trial and everything. And certainly the Rape Crisis Centre knows this. And I'm not all against them. I mean, they do try to make that clear. It's not easy. You see, a good police investigation keeps the woman or the man out of the limelight. That's the great thing about it. We might say, a farmer talking to young girls about their private affairs. But I was getting to the nub of it, and they weren't in the public eye. By fishing out all the things and investigating it properly, the girl was then in a position to decide whether she'd go ahead or not, or whatever. And I was in a position to advise, I think you'll be all right if you go ahead with this. Now, that's held in camera. They don't give their names, but still it would be known probably. So you get my point. This is why a good police force is so vital. But unfortunately, because our neighbours vote Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, and the IRA, which is Sinn Féin, they are promoting the higher officers in the Guards, and the good investigators cannot get promoted. There's some of the great sergeants. Usually the Guard will get up to be a sergeant. Some great sergeants, great law people and all, but they cannot get up. I couldn't get above the rank of inspector. Yet they were prepared to give me an impeccable recommendation when I retired. So that's the problem you have. It's the people put the government in place to destroy the Garda Síochána. And even with that, there's still a good police force. But no good investigator will get high up. None, because the jackasses over him have no way of measuring it. How would Helen McEntee know what's a suitable person for promotion? She was the Minister for Justice. It's a disaster. So badly so that they couldn't get a commissioner to replace Noreen O'Sullivan. They had to sack or get rid of 2 commissioners. That'll tell you the mess our country's in due to my neighbours voting for these creeps. Anyway, I can only tell you that's it. So that was the situation where that girl withdrew that complaint and matters settled down. That was the end of it. But I knew that he did do it, and I was prepared to support her in the thing. So in case anyone thinks that I was a kind of an anti-woman, that's nonsense. Now, in outings nowadays, and you see people around the town and girls in the towns and very skimpy skirts on them and all that, and this is bound to raise the testosterone levels a bit in the boys and all of this. So it's all a highly complex thing. And there are communities and schools where girls who don't do this are laughed at, are made a laughing stock. Moreover, our Irish government, mainly by Micheál Martin, Mary Lou MacDonald and Simon Harris, they're promoting the idea that not only is it all right to have young people groomed for raping when they get to be 18, you can actually alter them. You can actually cut off their testicles and their penises to leave them fit for predators. And you can take a girl and cut off her breasts. That's what Simon Harris is pushing. That's what Helen McEntee is pushing. And that is what Rodrigo Gorman pushed for. And that's what the people of Dublin voted for and in the country. So you have this strange thing. Now, in Rotherham in England, 1,400 white girls were groomed by Muslims, Muslims, for sex. And nothing was done by the police, or little or nothing was done. It's hidden and swept under the carpet because there were Muslims, immigrants. That's the situation. In Ireland, we had several people killed. We had 2 men beheaded in Sligo. We had a lovely little teacher killed. We had an attempt to kill a woman and 3 kids. And when the rioting broke out with the shock of the Irish people, our government condemned the rioters for losing the hair over a person nearly being killed. So in Ireland, the killer is always right, and the victim and those who support the victim is always wrong. And our people vote religiously for the people that believe this. Now, to go back to the original assault, There's talk there that the court wouldn't allow Conor McGregor to show a video of the events afterwards and all of that. I would have thought all of that would be fairly relevant. The only issue in that case is consent. There's nothing else. There's nothing else, only consent there. I can't say what happened. I haven't a clue. Now, I'll say this about Conor McGregor. He's a rough bucko. Don't be in any doubt. What I'd love to know about him is, when he was a young lad at school, where did he stand with bullying? In every school, especially rough areas of Dublin, there's always bully boys. And they make life miserable for decent children. Quiet fellas. I wonder, did he ever stand up for them? Because I always did. I always stood up for the young lads and wee lads and friends of mine that be abused. And I went to secondary schools, and there was going on there, and I wrote away for a book to show me how to knock out a fellow with a punch. You had to hit him a certain way, and you bent this bone. And I never told anyone, but when the rows start, I used it. And I remember I hit a fellow one time, and he didn't faint immediately. He fainted 2 hours after. Ruffins. So I don't like that bullying. And it was a float in the Patrick's Day parade: be buddies, not bullies. Poor wee fellas being abused at school. And it was tried with me as a youngster too. I hate bullying. I absolutely hate it. So if Conor McGregor was a bully for most of his life, I wouldn't like him that well. But I have no evidence of that. A lad like him can be often possessed with a very good sense of fair play. I know that if I was at the Patrick's Day parade and he was there in the pub and I was having a drink, I wouldn't turn my back on him. You'd be afraid he'd be false, that he'd get a few drinks and someone would say something to him and he'd come out with the fists. Because, you see, he's an expert fighter. I don't know, would he? But there is convictions and things about him that would support the theory that he's quite a rough tug in many ways. But you see, unfortunately, we can't have the world with everyone nice. Nice American boys were drafted into the Second World War and put on a big boat in Britain and driven across the sea to France, and the boat was let down, and the German machine gunners were banging away on the shore, and they had to face those machine guns. And if they got up to them, they had to kill them, and vice versa. So it's not a nice world. A hard, tough soldier can be very useful in war. For those of you who support Ukraine in the war against Russia, you can't expect the people who beat the Russians to be gentlemen when they come back. You can't expect a man or anyone like that to be an expert in everything and to be able to change from being a toughie to being a sissy, more or less, in the one time. It doesn't work like that. But whatever about Conor McGregor, my point in rowing in on this rape thing is it was a civil rape. It wasn't against the people of Ireland. There are civil cases against the complainant and the respondent, him and the lady concerned. And there's no conviction as such. There's a finding. In a criminal case, the jury will convict. The court will convict. In a civil case, the jury or the court will make a finding of fact that it did happen. And in this case, the jury found that it did happen. So that's all right, but it must be taken in the context that it's a civil case. It's not a criminal conviction. And the media are pushing this narrative that it is a civil conviction. A conviction. In other words, to blacken McGregor as much as possible. Now, Simon Harris has come out and he's made this thing that he has toxic masculinity. So what is toxic? It's stretching it a bit. Masculinity. So he's essentially saying that being a man or being masculine is offensive to him. And I'd like to ask him the question, is it all right for a man to go into a boxing ring with a woman and beat her, as happened in the Olympics in Paris in 2024? Well, clearly he's aligned with the EU and he would see nothing wrong with it. Women now can't become boxers or mixed martial arts people because he will put men in with them. That's what we're dealing with. That's the corruption you're dealing with. And that's a lot more corrupt than the single instance of Conor McGregor's behaviour. Moreover, McGregor happens to have the ear of the President of America because of his sporting prowess. And McGregor is using it for good purposes, for the best of his country. And they don't like it. And they use the word toxic masculinity. He was a T-boy for Francis Fitzgerald. This is what, and we're inclusive. He's inclusive for all of the Punjab, all of Asia, all of Pakistan, all of Somalia, all of South Africa, all of Libya. Anywhere there's a culture different to Ireland's, he craves them in and packs them into towns in Roscommon and everywhere else. And Conor McGregor knows, and he got invited by Trump. Trump was doing a bit of different, I'd say. And the fact is that Conor McGregor, in Trump's mind, is equal, if not better, than Micheál Martin. And in fact, assuming he's not a total bully of youngsters and things like that, which I don't believe he is a better man because he's prepared to forego his very rich lifestyle. And he has convictions for driving offences. And the guards have an awful problem. When it's very hard to catch him and bring him into custody, you'd want about 6. So I do have sympathy with the guards dealing with him when he's riz. And I'd advise him to calm down a bit. But it's not easy to go from being a mixed martial arts champion to being a gentleman. But he could yet prove to be a gentleman. And he puts his country first. I have made the point again to what our government are doing with filling us with migrants is the most criminal, unpatriotic, treasonous act that could be visited on the Irish people. We'll never probably manage to penalise them. The people will never turn against them to that degree. I'd like to see them put on a gallows and hanged by the neck until they're dead. That's what they deserve. The whole lot of these governments that are doing this. We have a situation where there was a vote in the European Parliament, and the Greens in Germany voted to continue the war in Ukraine. Every country and the whole France, Germany, Britain voted for no peace in Ukraine. They voted for war. Now we have to balance the effect of men behaving maybe badly in many ways, and the fact that Boris Johnson, Victoria Nuland have murdered 1 million people in Ukraine, and that our government with Micheál Martin, Jim O'Callaghan and Simon Harris and Mary Lou MacDonald and Pierce Doherty are all plugging away at that and trying to back them and give them money to murder more. And they're not happy that there's not another 1 million killed, and they'll just drive the war on until they have no soldiers left to fight. And the people that plead and cry about so-called masculinity have no problem with Zelensky lifting poor little retarded boys out of their parents' home and forcing them into the meat grinder. No problem at all. None. Simon Harris, his heart bleeds when any talk of peace in Ukraine takes place. Micheál Martin, the same, and Mary Lou MacDonald, unfortunately, the same. There was a panic all over Europe and in Ireland when Trump lifted up the phone to Putin and says, "Here, will we have a chat?" They nearly died, and it put them into a tailspin. That's the reality of the situation. And we need to fix our own country first. We need to forget about the minor problem with the protagonists. The fact that I'm a rowdy devil in a row or something like that, it's not the point. I pay me bills. And I always stand up for the underdog. That doesn't mean my case isn't right. But unfortunately, our neighbours and our neighbours' children are still corrupt, bent, twisted rascals. And they go sneaking into the polling booth and they vote for these creeps. Imagine that several people guaranteed to vote for me in the last election. and I arranged lifts for them to get in, some of them not able to write their name. And they did what they said. They voted for me and then insisted on voting for Niamh Smith. So I was paying for their carriage in for them to vote for Niamh Smith when I was eliminated. That's the problem we have. And that raises the question, are the people of Ireland worth bothering about? Should I not change my tack and now write a book or write a video on how to be corrupt? Why don't everyone be corrupt? Wouldn't that not be a better way? Let's all be corrupt. That's a way of looking at it. So that's the story, folks. So 25 minutes. The thing about it is, I'm trying to give you the law. The law is that as an ex-policeman, sex cases are notoriously problematical. They're a nightmare for judges. They're a nightmare for a jury. You're talking about what happened between the sheets, perhaps, or out in the back of the van, and you know it happened. You prove it. It's not denied it happened. The question is, did the other party consent? If it's a woman, did she consent? And how do you prove that? The DPP issued instructions years ago on how you take a statement. You deal with the background. What was she lying on? Was she standing up? What happened to her shoes? How was her clothing arranged? What did she notice? If she was along a road, was there cars going up and down? Did she notice cars going up and down? Little things like that. And all of that. And then compare that to the scene. Oh, I remember there was a dog barking in the house next door. Aha, see, I remember that. I remember thinking about the dog. That's the normal thing in a traumatic situation. These things tend to register. And then and get all your facts right. But what may be happening now is, oh, don't bother doing that. Oh, sure, she was raped. It's terrible. We have to convict him, and that's it. The man has to be convicted to placate the woman. That's bad law, and that will be the law, and you're going to see a lot more of that. Folks, that's all I can say to you. I think McGregor stood up for his country. The fight here is not about rapes or anything else. The fight here is how do we stop the colonisation of our country by our enemy. An enemy, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael particularly, that are worse than anything that John Trevelyan, the English fellow during the famine, did. Worse than your man, Percival, that burned down Michael Collins's house. What do you call the other fellow? Maxwell, that shot the 1916 leaders. These are worse. They're worse. They're worse traitors because they're changing the whole country forever. What the British didn't actually do. And the British protected the environment. There's parts of their estate everywhere. These idiots are destroying it with pylons, windmills, cables, destroying our whole natural environment. And I can see the wildlife of the country going down and decreasing every year. These are the traitors. The traitors. Fianna Fáil are traitors. And people who vote for them are traitors. Fine Gael are traitors. You wouldn't expect anything from Sinn Féin. And by the way, when people talk about juries, the Special Criminal Court exists where the jury will be intimidated. And one of the criteria is Sinn Féin. They only signed a thing there to allow it there recently. IRA, and which is Sinn Féin as we know, they still have to have a special court with no jury. They can contest that with me if they like. They won't. Anyway, folks, that's the story. The main issue is that we got our point across in America. We raised awareness, and these videos may help for Americans to understand what's going on in Ireland. Their darling country that their grandfathers left will not be here very shortly again. And that was a very, very valid point Conor McGregor made. Less than 30 minutes. Good luck, folks. Goodbye.